the second time that I register this video because this fucking camera sucks and it has deleted all my footage because it said memory card error. So I'm not in a good mood at all, but I'm always in a good mood to talk about books. So I think that now it's a good time to talk about this week's topic, which is Colleen Hoover and her books, and whether or not she is just one of them all, one of the all flimsy and nothing concrete authors, or she's actually one of the good ones. So let's dive into the video. I decided to challenge myself this week to read Colleen Hoover's books and actually give her a fair chance to be liked by myself. And I was pretty surprised by what I discovered. I started with this book, It Ends With Us, and I started with a terrible opinion of it. My overall perception of the book from the very start was of something not deep, not flimsy, not special, because they meet right in the first chapter, which for me was a bit of a really? Fortunately, it gained a lot of depth and a lot of interesting twists going on, because we discover that she has suffered, not directly, but has witnessed abuse as a child because her mother was beaten up by her father and she never said anything. And what she did to cope in that time was to have the support of a guy that at the time was homeless because her mother refused to take care of him, and she basically sent him off to nowhere land, and he had to live in an abandoned house. He didn't have any clothes, and so she was the only person that cared for him, and he was actually a very sweet guy that took care of her, and they ended up having a small relationship before he went into the army. One part. Then what happens is that through the relationship, the beginning, everything is good, but going on, they have in the relationship with this other guy that she meets at the beginning a lot of fighty moments, and the fighty moments always end up with him pushing her and hurting her in some way. This happens, I think, 3 times. And after those 3 times, she doesn't want to be with him anymore, and she escapes to the house of the first guy that I talked to you about. Through time, he had become a bit richer. He had opened a new restaurant that he possessed in town, and so he developed as a grown-up man, as a successful person. And so she went to him for support, and he took care of her for a while before she got back to her own life. And she decides, after discovering that she's pregnant with the guy that she meets at the very beginning, that she wants to break up the relationship because she doesn't want to feed into her children what she had as a child. She doesn't want her to suffer how she suffered. He says that he does that because he's not under control, and she acknowledges that is okay, but this still is not okay. So obviously she is not supposed to keep up with those things no matter what the excuse. And so she breaks up with him, and they divorce, and they are in an agreement in which he will see the child once a week. And she ends up at the very end decided to date back the guy that she spent her childhood with, because he always took care of her. He did not change in that regard, and they are a very happy couple. So that one was a book that it shook me because it had elements of betrayal, and violence was something that I wasn't expecting in such a lightly presented book with flowers and everything. And It was something that really made it interesting and made the end something that I was super happy about, because I was like, she deserves better, and she got better, which is great, because I wouldn't have supported the book if it had had another ending, because it would have been a promotion of something that I don't stand by, which is not looking after yourself and your well-being first. A good one for me. Then I went on to book 2, Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. Second book, another thing. Here we have a person that has just come out of jail. She's called Kenna, and she comes out of jail and she goes back to the city she came from because she wants to get back to her daughter. Why she was in jail is because she pleaded guilty for killing her boyfriend, because they were in a car crash. She went out okay and he was stuck in the car, and he was unresponsive when she went out. She was unable to wake him up. The arm that she touched was dead, and so she panicked, rushed away, and wasn't able to find the phones after the crash, so she wasn't able to call for help. And even though he could have survived, she had nothing to do with it, but she still was such in a shock that she pleaded guilty, and everything went downhill from there. She had a child as soon as she went to prison, but the child was premature, so she couldn't see it for the 2 days that she would have had as an allowance, and just doesn't know the child. So her whole journey is on building back the trust that she had lost due to her time spent in prison, and building back a relationship with that child. The child was being cared for by the paternal grandparents. They didn't want to have anything to do with her, but thanks to the help of the best friend of this dead man, she was able to actually gain their trust back. And that was possible because he actually saw a suffering woman inside that person that was convicted for murder, and that wasn't anyone's favorite at all. So I think that was a very motivational story for mothers, but I couldn't really relate to that. So for me, it wasn't a 5 out of 5. I gave it 4 out of 5 in Goodreads, but it still was a good read. I cannot say it wasn't. So another point for Colleen Hoover. And then this is my last read, Verity. Shock. This book is pure shock and pure delight at the same time, because we have 2 different reads that I loved, because we have a book inside the book that comes in the form of an autobiography written by this author, Verity. And Verity is, when we open the story, has been involved in a car crash, and she is unresponsive and fixed to her bed for who knows how much time. And she is there, and the other author that comes in to take her place comes across this autobiography that is written in a very hideous way, and everything from the autobiography identifies Verity as a person that is just in the relationship she's in for the man. She just wants the man and not the children, doesn't love the children, just is in it for sex and approval, and she just doesn't appear a good person from all of that. And she, in this autobiography, confesses having murdered one of the children that have died in the past. The twins, one of them died because of a reaction to peanut allergy, and the other one drowned. And from everything that she writes in the autobiography, it appears that she has killed her because she didn't rescue her. But what appears true is that she was caught in a net and wasn't able to make it back up. And this is where it becomes troubling, because this new author discovers is not actually sick and she's faking it, and this is what tips it up and makes it too much for her husband to bear it, and he kills her, choking her in a disgusting way, which is not gonna talk about it. And after all of that, what makes it even more problematic is that this new author, the substitute author, finds a letter from Verity that says that she has written everything she wrote because it was, let's say, a training exercise to write better from the point of view of the villain, and this happened because she was writing a series about villains from the point of view of the villain. I don't know what to think. I'm actually drawn to think that a person couldn't be as horrible, but at the same time there are coincidences and things that are present in the manuscript that make me question it. And this is, of course, the whole point, but it really made me reflect on the fact that we can never know a person from what they write. We have to know a person from what they are. And their writing is just a part of them. It's just you seeing me in this YouTube video. You're never gonna know me from my videos completely, because in here I am a person, and in real life I have occurrences, things that do not happen in my videos, and that just make me another person. So it was really interesting for that reason. Highly recommended. I highly recommend it. If you love twisted stuff and stuff that is purely mental, this is the book for you. 100%. You wouldn't regret it at all. I think that you're gonna love that. So what's the conclusion of all of this? That I was wrong. I was totally wrong about Colleen Hoover and what I thought her writing was gonna be, and the author that I thought she was gonna be. I don't know her as a person, and I don't need to, because her writing is all that matters as an author, and it's something good. It was so good in my opinion. So good. And also I like that I read 3 very different books that had the same topics going through them, but that treated them in very different ways. This is something that I really loved. So as an overall, would I recommend Colleen Hoover? Yes, I fairly think you should read some of her books. If you have never picked her up, I would suggest, from my suggestion, you see what is the book that appealed the most to you and you choose one of the 3 that I suggested. Or if you are an avid Colleen Hoover fan, suggest to me some other books of hers that I could read, because I would really be interested to dive more into her writing and into her as an author. I would love that. So I really hope you liked this review, that you will decide to thumb it up, to subscribe to the channel, and I really hope that I will see you next week. Bye guys!